Salute. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If everybody votes today. Nope.
So we start off this evening with the public hearing on our fiscal budget, fiscal year 2016-17 budget. We'll start with a presentation by our CEO, Karen King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm filling in this evening for Stephen Woods, whose daughter is getting her master's degree, graduating this evening. And so he thought that was more important than we are. I don't understand it, but you have before you a summary. We had a workshop in May, a detailed workshop in May on the budget. You gave staff some direction. We've incorporated those changes that you wanted to see made, and you have a summary of the budget in your agenda. It shows that we anticipate in 2016-17 receiving $28,646,010 in revenue, and coincidentally expending $28,646,020 in expenses. The second page, that's the operating budget. The second page summarizes the capital program for a total of $18,307,675. And there's a listing of the items there that are proposed to be expended. The largest is 24 CNG 40-foot bus replacements at $14,400,000. That's the bulk of the capital program for next year.
Okay, thank you for the executive summary. We will now open the session up for public comment. Open the hearing for public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening concerning our budget? Appears we have none. We will now close the public hearing and move on with our agenda. Is that the correct procedure?
That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Next item is to approve our agenda for the evening. We do have a change to the agenda. We're asking for approval with minus item 17, the executive session.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. We now move into our regular public comment session. Okay. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring an opportunity to address the board on any matter not on this agenda and over which it has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Persons wishing to include their verbatim remarks in the official record shall submit same in writing. Members of the audience are asked to avoid engaging in any behavior that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Speakers are asked to state their name and address for the record prior to making the presentation. We don't have any written requests for public comment in this section. So, anybody in the audience? No? All right. We'll move on to the next matter. Minutes of May 17th.
Move to approve. Second.
Approval and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Accounts payable check disbursements for the period.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 5, cancellation of board meetings. We're showing July and August as one meeting per month due to low activity for the month.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And letter to Congress. Karen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your board packet is a letter that's been drafted to Congressman McCarthy and Congressman Valadao. As you know, last year we got the FAST Act passed for 5 years to fund the Highway Trust Fund from which public transit is funded. There's concerns about the solvency of that fund, and there's particularly concerns about the long-term funding that gasoline tax is not going to be the way to fund that in the future. So the chair asked that I put this letter on the agenda for this evening to see if the board supported sending a letter to our delegation. The Ways and Means Committee is taking this up shortly, and we want to encourage them to be vigorous in their pursuit of finding a new methodology for funding highways and transit in the future. And 5 years, as you all know, passes very quickly, so we want to light a fire under them now.
Mr. Chairman, I get a question.
Yes?
What is APTA's position on this issue?
Actually, the reason I brought it up originally is because last month the APTA newsletter put a call out recommending that organizations contact their representatives, congressmen, for this, and they even provided a recommended language for the letter. So they're replying, as far as I know. Karen, you have more experience with the organization.
That's correct. APTA's position has been to call for more funding for public transit, but not to specify where that funding will come from. There has been a variety of methodologies that have been suggested, but APTA has not gotten behind any particular methodology.
The reason why I asked the question is I went back to the conference in San Antonio. We heard from, I guess, the chief, the head, the top APTA lobbyist that speaks to the senators, and I suppose he'll probably talk to some of the members of the House Ways and Means Committee. Basically, he was talking about, you know, that this funding for the highway trust fund is like a fund that you can't touch. It's like there's a special, you know, type of funding that other people can't come and grab from. So, anyways, I'm in full support of this. I just was kind of curious where this came from. So I'll make a motion to approve the letters to both of our representatives in the House.
Okay, thank you. We have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, could you sign those letters before you leave this
Sure.
evening?
Yes?
Thank you.
You have copies there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on, we have our, looking forward to our short-range transit plan presented by Emery. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's time again to update our annual short-range transit plan. And I have a few slides here and a brief summary of this year's plan. The short-range transit plan, you may recall when we reviewed it last year, is a primary planning document which guides the routine decisions associated with operating the system. The document covers a 5-year span. It's updated annually, usually. And most importantly, the objective of the plan is to achieve the district's goals by following the mission statement. And that slide says that the mission statement appears below, but on this slide we don't have it below.
We have it.
Yes.
We have it.
Yeah. This slide here is showing basically the basic outline of the plan, which is the same as last year. It starts with describing the system. We go into discussions on standards. We do an analysis. We talk about previous revisions. We have a recommended service plan, and then it ends with the financial plan, and there's also a glossary with it. It has a lot of maps and tables and graphs, and this is just an example of what's in the plan. This red line here, that's the legal boundary of the transit district. This is the area within that red boundary is where we get our population numbers from current COG. It includes all of the city limits of Bakersfield and then some of the adjacent unincorporated county areas. It's a confusing boundary because the annexations are confusing, and we follow whatever the annexations are. We go into some of the ridership characteristics, demographics. Those are, again, just some examples of some of the maps and graphs that we have. And then the next section is a detailed analysis, a discussion of service and performance standards, and some of them are relating also to the Title VI when we do any required service equity analyses. And so you can see there's quite a list there of areas that are addressed. And then we also have standards for provision of service to new areas. Because when there's requests for service to a new area, we want to look at different characteristics. And the density, of course, is really important. How dense an area is, the higher the density, the better the chances for a successful fixed route. And all of those characteristics are all addressed in that section. And then we start going into the section that deals with the actual analysis from the past fiscal year, last fiscal year that ended. There's a full year's worth of data. And those are examples of some of the graphs, the pie charts. We have rankings of the routes, which routes are the strongest, which are the weakest, based on passengers per mile per hour and the operating ratio that's included in the report. And then also, we're not forgetting about get-a-lift. We have graphs and statistics also dealing with the performance of get-a-lift. And then that analysis section ends with what I would call a snapshot of each route. It shows the map there and some key characteristics on the route's performance. And this is a table on the Title VI review. Whenever we're looking at changes, we need to always remember to look at the issues of equity. And you might recall some time back, the board affirmed the definitions of the policies of major service change, all of that related to the Title VI. And then we go into projections. This is an example of the table that's in there that is all the miles and hours projections, and then this is also used for the budget and financial planning. And then we have the recommended service plan, which details the recommended service plans for the 5 years. Year number 1, of course, is the most important year because that's the year coming up, July 1st. We just reviewed those changes recently, and the board approved those changes. That includes the headway improvements on Route 61. And most of the other changes are relatively more minor time point adjustments. In year number 2, we're looking at adding evening service to the 2 rapid routes, the routes 21 and 22, Saturday and Sunday until 11 p.m. The route 47 would be extended to the Southwest Transit Center to try to capture more trips as a trip generator there at Gallery Plaza. And Route 62, the headways would be improved from hourly to every half hour on weekdays. In year number 3, evening service would be extended to the Route 44 on Saturday and Sunday. 44 is one of our strongest routes. And 45, also one of the strongest routes, we would improve the Monday through Friday daytime headways from 30 to 20 minutes. And the Route 47 weekend service would be operated. And in year number 4, the evening service ended on the 3 routes shown there, 47, 81, and 83. And then the last year, 41, an extension to a morning drive if there's enough demand and road structure in that area, and the 44 extending out to the White Lane, Buena Vista Road area. And keep in mind that since this plan is updated annually, we can always make changes. We can, like if something's in year number 3 now, maybe a year from now we might, conditions may change, whatever, we might want to bump it up to year number 2. Or we could add something that's not on here right now. So it's an annual update. And then the final chapter is the financial plan, and the board's already had an extensive discussion and workshop on the budget, and so Stephen has provided tables there in that section which outlines the 5-year horizon there on revenues, expenses, funding numbers. So that pretty much completes my summary. The Operations and Service Development Committee, represented by Director Para, we met with her recently and to review the plan. The one discussion we had would be that when we do the update next year, we would expand the discussion of the future BRT service. That's the bus rapid transit. You may recall the long-range plan had discussed the 2 rapid routes as eventually turning into the BRT lines. And then also the catchment area for the service. The catchment area is the distance traveled to get to the bus routes. Some studies have been done that show that you can extend the catchment area without even extending routes. For example, you can do more bike transit interface. You can add park and ride lots where people can come from farther distances to catch the bus. And then another way would be improvements to pedestrian infrastructure. For example, you may have a route nearby, but there's a canal or railroad or highway that prohibits people from just walking right across over to it. And if we could encourage things like trails, pathways, overpasses, things like that, then the catchment area would improve. They wouldn't have to go maybe a mile all the way around to try to get over the barrier. So we plan to have a little more discussion and emphasis on that next year. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah.
What's different from year to year?
The difference is in the statistics in the analysis chapter. We'll update it every year. For example, this fiscal year has not ended yet, but when this fiscal year ends, we will have all the new ridership and productivity and numbers and miles, hours, and so forth. So that's updated every year. And then also there's changes in the budget, of course. Those numbers will be updated. And in the recommended service plan, any changes in what we may be recommending for a service.
So what is that from the previous transit plan to this one?
It would be from the previous one to this one.
No, I want them to know what the information is. What has changed?
Okay, what is that? What has changed? In the recommended plan, what has changed is we've added more service improvements. We've added more. I don't believe the previous one had much about Route 47. I think there was some information in there, but for example, something new would be, compared to last year, would be the extension to the Valley Plaza on Route 47. That's been added. And let's see what else. I believe we did have the routes 21 in there last year for improvements on the weekends, the weeknights. I'm trying to think what else. I think there's a few others that we, I believe the Route 41, that wasn't in there last year, that's been added, about the possible extensions farther east. So those are some of the examples of some of the changes from, at least in the service. And of course, all the statistics, those are updated in the budget with the newest numbers. And then also, and then one other thing that was added, in the previous year's plan, we didn't have any maps with any demographics. And the maps, they're at a small scale because otherwise we have to have page after page of maps. That was also added this year. And then every year, COG in May, they give us their new population estimates in the district, so that also was updated. In fact, I expect us to finally hit the 500,000 number next year. I think we're at 492, so I bet we'll hit 500 next year.
Cindy?
Thank you, Emery. I just wanted to thank you for the work that you put into this document. I think it's easily understood if you dive into it and look at the graphs and the demographics especially. I think those were a good addition to it. But also I wanted to let the rest of the board know this is it's a living document still. I mean, it's not like the Decatur stop that we added wasn't part of the old or last year's 5-year plan, but because of public comment and Emery's team of 2, I guess, looking at the data and realizing that that there is possibility that could capture more riders, and so we implemented that new stop, and we've got a lot of good feedback from the drivers that I talked to at the barbecue. They said that the public is really happy about getting that stop back. So the document, we're not, I don't want to say we're not held to this only. If we come up with other ideas or other suggestions that Emery thinks that is a good is a good suggestion, then we go ahead and implement those plans, correct?
Yes. Yeah, and we'll always have the public hearings, of course, as necessary for any major changes.
Anything more, John?
I've got a question. I looked at page 125. This is service changes effective 10. I just don't understand it. I'm not questioning it. I just don't quite understand. Page 125. I guess it really starts on 124. These are like the record of the service changes that have occurred per previous service revisions.
Yes.
And can you just explain, I can see the routes, I understand the description of the change, but what is the rev MLS change per day, percentage change? And then on the next page, on 125, we got a bunch of red. I'm just kind of curious what this all means.
Yeah, that was the change in the revenue miles. If it's in parentheses in red, it's meaning there was a decrease. And also the same thing for the revenue hours.
Oh, I see.
And
So
the
basically,
reason-
these changes caused a reduction in the vehicle miles that we traveled and also the hours.
Yes, at least on those routes. And we want to always do that because it's related to our definition of a major service change, 25% of miles or hours being affected. So yeah, that chapter, that's just showing all the changes since the new system started.
Understood. Thanks for helping me understand that. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Yeah.
A couple things. what I looked at to review isn't close to what this report is. So, I'm glad it was in committee. I'm glad you all got to review it. However, if you're going to send this to me, then please send me the whole thing.
We'd be happy to do that, although last year we got a request to just send the executive summary, so we just sent the executive summary.
Yeah, actually, we talked about that in the committee, that whether to, at first I thought we would send the whole thing, but then it was.
That's fine. So, if this is the executive summary, all right, then that's fine. I'm the one that said send the executive summary, okay? What it doesn't have is what's different from this one to the previous one. It's not here. I don't know what I am. The purpose of the executive summary, from my point of view, is to read something and then say on page such and such. Then you look at the whole document and pick out the information that you want to either verify or to understand more, or that you might have questions about that you come to the board meeting with. I didn't have the document to refer back to, and even if I had, I probably wouldn't have read the entire thing, because what I was looking for as a part of the executive summary is comparison from year to year, what's changed, that kind of thing. So I would recommend for go forward on reports like this, that we have, here's what we had, here's what's changed, you want to see the detail, look on page whatever. And then we can go and look at that. Each one's committee is going to have maybe a different viewpoint of what they want to look at in here. Finance might have one viewpoint, maybe a ridership, route thing, whatever, but it would make it easier. That's all. The information is unbelievable. I mean, I'm looking forward to actually, because this is one of the things I really do like to look at, is the reports that you put out. I mean, they're fabulous. That's just what I like.
Got one more question. Page 141. Funding projects for like the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's a 2020, 19 to 20. Got a large deficit. Do we have a big construction project there? Is that our thought process on moving our location, or is that going to be a bus procurement?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. Stephen would be able to tell you that. I think it's probably the new facility.
Okay.
But I'll find out for you and get back to you.
That's all we could reasonably hope for. Believing me.
I think this is a great report. I'm going to spend some time looking through the whole document, study it, and if I have some more questions, I'll be happy to come back at the next meeting and ask them.
Okay. The action tonight was looking for approval, but it sounds like we may want to table that until the next meeting.
It's coming out of committee, recommending
Yeah,
approval, correct?
Yes, out of
Oh,
committee.
okay, you do have a recommendation.
Yeah, we recommend.
All right. We have a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Right.
Aye. Thank you, Cindy, for your work on that, and Emery and your team. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 8, get a lift paratransit service area. We have 2 public speakers for this. We'll open this item up for public speaking in advance, or first the presentation.
Typically, we'd give the staff report first.
Okay. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is on the agenda at the request of Board Member Baldwin. In November, it came to the attention of Golden Empire Transit District that the Alzheimer's Disease Association of Kern County was planning to build a new facility that is outside of our get-a-lift service area. We currently do provide some service for them or for their clients. And so we sent a letter, which is attachment A to your staff report, to them, letting them know that we would no longer be able to provide that service because it is outside the service area. We have defined our service area in compliance with FTA Circular 4710.1, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and U.S. Department of Transportation implementing regulations of 49 CFR Part 27, 37, 38, and 39. And basically what those say is that we are to provide complimentary paratransit service to people who are not able to access our fixed route bus service within 3/4 of a mile of any fixed route. So that's how that service area is defined, and your attachment C shows in red the southwest portion of our service area and where that boundary is and where the new Alzheimer's disease facility is being built. I think that's all staff has to say at this point, and I would refer to Board Member Baldwin.
Jim?
How far is this from here to here?
It's, if you do it as the crow flies, it's 1.87 miles. It's 2 miles if you follow the roadway.
And this is out by Halchin and all that?
Yes.
Correct.
And at what point in time would we be extending the boundaries of our service area to include this?
The SRTP that
Yep.
Emery just
Mhm.
showed was, that's scheduled for the 5th year of that plan, when we would extend fixed route service out to that area, which would then expand the get-a-lift boundary.
And are there consequences? Are we breaking any laws if we went out there to make a run to the Alzheimer's Center?
No, there's nothing that prohibits you from going beyond the law.
I see.
Would you restate that, please? There's nothing that,
Prohibits you from providing more service than what the law requires.
This is my philosophy on quality. You've heard it before because I've told you. We have policies. The policies need to be administered fairly and evenly. Any exception to whatever the policy is needs to be approved only at the highest level. So at the board, the CEO, at the president, whatever, okay? And only if it makes sense and if it can be something that we can do. Sometimes there's things that prevent us from being able to do that, regulations of any kind, okay? But if there are no regulations, and depending on what level or demand the service is, I would like to at least see us, when it comes to helping the elderly and or disabled, to take a look and say, is this something that's reasonable? Can we drive 2 miles from point A to point B and back again and make a reasonable assumption that we're going to improve our quality of service to take care of these people who have a need? That's all. So That's the purpose of bringing this up tonight.
Before staff sent the letter to ADAC, we believe we did that analysis. And that's why we sent the letter, because we wanted to let them know as soon as possible that there would be a problem. The Coordinated Transportation Service Agency, the CTSA, which is operated by North of the River, provides service comparable to Get a Lift in areas of metropolitan Bakersfield where we do not provide service. And we do get a number of requests for service outside of that boundary.
Well, we've got stuff happening in this area of town that may need to be looked at on a faster track than 5 years out. We've got Houchin out there. We've got several things that are actually going on out there. And the Alzheimer's Center is just one of them. People who will need help or giving assistance to people. 5-year thing doesn't really work for me. I think that's way too long. If we have to wait for a year, year and a half, whatever, we need to take a look at. Maybe we can't do it in 2016, maybe we can't do it in 2017. But I think that we need to move this up on our schedule.
And we certainly can consider that. We review all the routes annually. So we look at the
Since this is not
entire
a fixed
service
route,
area.
this is, I mean, the request here is not for fixed routes, correct?
We do have requests for fixed route service in that area, yes.
You do have,
Yes,
but this particular request was about Get a Left, wasn't it?
correct.
I mean, Get a Left has a lot more flexibility than the fixed routes has.
Yes.
So I'm recommending to the board that we recommend to staff to move this up on the timeline and to make this more available quicker than anticipated in our presentation that we received tonight because of the facilities that are going out here. Our community is expanding, and we may not be able to do this with the fixed route as quickly, but with the Get a Lift route that has the flexibility, I think we need to take a real strong look at that.
Was the request a request to establish a service contract for a specific facility? Or?
No, actually, the communication was initiated by Get because we heard about the new facility and we were concerned that it was outside of our service area, and we felt that they needed to know that. We would have difficulty serving their clients because it was outside of our service area.
Ellie? Or Cindy? Yeah.
I just want to say I agree with Director Baldwin that the 5-year on the short range transit plan is a little too far out for this particular situation, but that this is the Get a Lift and the 5-year was on the fixed route. And so I don't see any problem with us looking at it in moving it up 2 years, maybe 2017, but to keep it on our radar and to the analysis you said that was done, was that done fixed route analysis, or was that an analysis on Get a Lifts that were going to the old Alzheimer's facility?
Both.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I might suggest you may want to take public comment before the discussion goes further.
Okay. All right. We have from ADEC, the Kim, is it Kim McConnelly?
McAnally.
McAnally, I'm sorry. Please join us.
I guess we're just basically here today to, ask you, I'll just speak loud. I guess for a miracle. We know that it doesn't go out in that area, and right now you service about 20 of our clients. We are going to climb in our census, so we would probably be around anywhere from 40 to 60 clients that would need that service. That area is growing. We have an assisted living facility out there that services 110. We have the Hodgkin's Blood Bank. We have Hoffman Hospice, and then we also have Trinity Church area. So the area is growing, and like I said, we're basically asking you, to really look at it. We really need to service our clients. We have our clients themselves, plus the care providers, are not able to get their loved one to our center, and they really rely on us for care throughout the day, and also care providers rely on us as well. Kate, do you want to say
Jim?
something?
When will the facility be inhabited?
We should be up and going by around August the 1st of 2016.
No.
No, September?
May I be invited to the mic?
Okay. Kate?
Yes.
Um,
Hi, my name is Kate Usey, and I'm the CEO for ADAKC. Our building will be completed by July, the end of July, but we have licensing that we still are dealing with, which is the state of California. So we expect to move into our facility by September, no later than December of this year. When we first received the letter in November, we probably were only transporting 3 or 4 of our clients to get a lift. The reason for that is CTSA could no longer accommodate the volume and the clients that we were receiving. We're at maximum capacity currently at our facility. So therefore, we now have about 20 people that are coming through Get a Lift because CTSA cannot provide transportation. When we move, our new facility will be from about 100 to 120 people in capacity. CTSA will not be able to accommodate us then either. I have checked into other forms of transportation. They're charging anywhere from $75 to $100 one way for medical transportation. Our seniors are lacking in transportation. We have to provide something out there. Caregivers, they're exhausted. A lot of them don't have means of transportation. They're elderly couples normally, so they're not driving. They need our service, and we need to figure out a way together, working together as a community, to get these people to our center. They're in much need, and we're building and expanding for the need of our community. So we would appreciate it if you guys could find a way to work with us, to work this out somehow, to make it work for everyone in our community. We are expanding. There is a lot of stuff going out there. The church is being built across the street from us. A skilled nursing, I'm being told, will be behind us, and a senior living community behind us as well. There's apartments out there. It's fast growing out there and expanding. So I think we need to figure out a way more so to accommodate the community that we have invested in our community, all community members that have donated to get these folks out to our facility. Our elderly are the forgotten generation. We can't do that. So I appreciate your time and consideration in this.
Thank you for your coming into this evening and explaining the background and the details of your growth. It's very, very critical to our planning. Elliot?
May I ask a question? Who normally helps transport, maybe this is kind of off the topic, who normally helps transport your patients?
CTSA and you now, and Get a Lift, bring the majority of our clients. 80% of our clients are transported by another means of transportation. Oh, I'm sorry, should I get to it? Yeah, it's fine. About 20% of our clientele are brought by family members. The other 80% is brought by CTSA or Get a Lift. So very few family members will bring their loved ones. Most of those, if they're working, will drop them off on their way to work, and we'll pick them up on their way home from work. But the majority of these people, like I say, we have people that are 52 years old that are in our center. So it's not an elderly disease. So I have a young a young gentleman that's in his 30s taking care of his mother. His mother's in her early 50s. So, and working. So it's not always elderly, but the majority of our clients are elderly, and they are picked up at their homes. You guys are really great about picking them up at their homes, bringing them to our center, dropping them off, coming in, getting some coffee, going to the restroom, whatever's necessary, and then picking them up and doing the same. So we really appreciate all that. Your drivers are fantastic. We really appreciate all of them. They're understanding the disease a lot more. We're educating the community in that way. I think we've even done it in service with your drivers out here for the Get a Left portion, to be able to understand the disease and the behaviors and so forth.
I've got it. So I just want to understand the whole issue.
Sure.
So your facility is privately funded?
No, we are a nonprofit organization.
So this is a nonprofit organization that the community has invested in to help build your facility.
Yes.
And then I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to understand. And then your patients, is it like a billed through their medical insurance service, or how does that work?
We're a social model facility, so we either have private pay clients, we write grants and do a lot of fundraising. I'm sure you've heard of all the fundraising that goes on. And then also long-term care insurance is the only other source besides Veterans Administration.
Gotcha.
Everything else is done solely by my staff and volunteers.
That's
and,
great.
And the majority of it is grant writing and fundraising. We have less than 50% that are actually private paid. And our rate is only $10 an hour, and it's been that for almost 8 years.
That's incredible.
So
Yeah.
again, this is a community project. We have a lot of community members that have donated to make sure that this facility is being built, and we expand our services.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, because when we look at this. Okay, this is outside of our service area. There is a cost for us to go and do this. Our Get a Left services, runs a very low fare box recovery ratio, and that's not necessarily a problem. But as we look to expand our service, and obviously what you guys are doing, it's great, and we want to support that. I'm sure Jim and Cindy and Mr. Hunter, we want to support. We, as a board, we want to push our staff and our organization to support this. But in order for it to work for everybody, we have to figure out, just like you do when you go to build a new facility, how do we fund something like this?
Right.
How do we? And so, maybe you can help through our staff get creative on, writing a grant. Help us write a grant to go and, fund, buying these tickets or guarantee, something similar to other arrangements we've made, with IKEA, or, where really the client, in this case, has been the driver for this increased, service in our community. And so, I think you have a board here, myself included, would be extremely receptive and supportive of what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And, we just probably need some help getting us there. And I think you made a really good point about the other services that are around, or the other folks that are around this area is expanding. And so, in order for us to make something for us to think about too is, we can get a reprieve from our fare box recovery ratio by expanding service out here. Maybe that's part of the conversation that we have with these folks and through Kern Cog, and say, listen, hey, our 5-year timeline is now a 1 or 2 year timeline, or maybe faster. And we can use that next year to get that reprieve on our fare box recovery ratio. And we look for our budgets. And so I'd like to encourage our staff to let's think outside the box. Let's figure out how quickly we can get service out there. And it sounds like we have the ability to go beyond this 1/4 mile range. But at this point, I think we need to help, the funding with ourselves on that side of things. So I don't know if there's any other great ideas, but I'd like to, Karen, maybe you can respond to some of those thoughts.
Actually, Mr. Chair, may I ask the speaker a question?
Sure.
How soon do you see you ramping up to 120 rides a day? Because we certainly don't have the capacity to add 120 trips a day to our Get a Lift service.
Right, well, you would not be all of the 120. because CTSA just a little, we've been working with them on the pickups and the time. They spend more time picking out our clients, which are mainly out in that area, and bringing them to the Olive Drive area. So they said the time spent on the bus and they could transport more because there would be less time involved in the transportation. So that's something that I would hope to work with you guys on as well, to see if we could maybe have 6 people on the bus in the same area pick up for Get-A-Lift and get them there more rapidly than you do to go all the way to Olive Drive. So that could be something that can be done with better planning as to pickups in the general area and be able to go there. It might be more cost effective to do it that way and pick them up in the same area. It would cost less gas, that's for sure. But as far as the passes, currently, right now, the families pay for them. We are working with several different people writing grants for transportation costs for our clients. It's a very big burden for our caregivers to have that in addition to the day service. Even though we're really good about what we're charging, to pay $5 or something of that nature is really expensive. And that's one of the things we kind of thought about the way you guys do a pass, that's something we'd like to do with CTSA too, and have a monthly pass so that you have the revenue and write a grant to be able to buy those for our clients, because it's they forget to get it, the caregivers forget to give it to them when they pick them up. They don't have their ticket or their pass. So it would be a lot easier if they just had a bus pass and we had them coming in and out. So we're trying to work in a lot of different ways. So as far as writing grants and things of that nature, I'd be more than happy to. I do a lot of grants, getting more transportation, buses, whatever it takes to make it work. We need something though. We have to do something for our seniors. There's not senior transportation out there.
Thank you. One thing we could add to the mix, to your conversation, Elliot, is in addition to grants, we're initiating and putting more energy into finding sponsorships for some of these special programs. I'd like to add that to the mix.
I would also suggest we have a conversation with Kern Cog about helping CTSA expand their service.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you,
your time.
Kate. Okay. We have a recommendation. Jim, do you want? Do we need to put that?
Yes, I would like to recommend to staff that they take a very strong look at the suggestions that have been made by the board tonight. I like all the comments that have been made. I really like the idea of talking to Kern Cog, and then also Fairbox Relief, looking at moving up the line as far as the timeline goes on the get-a-left piece for this particular project area, where all these groupings of things are happening in one little place right here. And let me just say thank you to the members of staff who have done the analysis, that have followed the policies. I have no complaints about what has happened. I want that to be very clear, okay? I'm asking for an exception to take a look to see if it's reasonable, and if so, then at those very high levels, make that exception, okay? Does that make sense to everyone?
All right.
You feel that you understand where I'm coming from? My last comment that I want to make on this is that this is the kind of thing that in the first month that I was on the board, I was talking about, that we need to find ways where we can show the community that we are going above and beyond in certain areas. Elderly, single moms with multiple children especially, the disabled, those folks that absolutely have got to have the help we can bring them as we are expanding our fixed routes, and then celebrate the living daylights out of it so that the whole community knows what we're doing. That's so important. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments? I think we have, as requested on this item, direction from the board. Karen?
Yes.
Okay. And thank you again, Kate and Kim, from
Thanks
here.
for coming.
Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. Can we go now?
Yes.
Should we go now?
You don't have to go. You can stay and hang out with us if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, moving. Ready? Item 9, board policy number 3, special transit service and charter policy, the annual review of.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have before you the special transit service charter policy for your review. We are severely constrained by federal regulation in how and when we can offer charter service, which is why we have a policy. We primarily can provide for government agents or government officials, human service organizations, when a for-profit charter service is not interested in providing service, and for events if the bus is open to the public and the fare is free. We provide, so some of the examples of what we do provide would be the transporting the homeless to Clay's Restaurant for Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner. We provide quite a few rides for the Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce leadership class every year. We provide service at Volkswagen from the parking lot to the event. Those are some of the kinds of things that we do. The policy, we are not recommending a change to the policy. It did go before committee and was approved as it is.
All right,
Whose committee?
that was my question. Yeah, which committee was this?
That was mine.
Oh, sorry. Did we get a report on that? No.
No, we just had
Okay.
the,
So, your recommendation is?
yeah, the recommendation, there was no change to the previous policy. So the committee of one, I guess, recommended that we continue to approve this policy.
Any other discussion? Do we have-
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Okay, moving on to the information technology 5-year strategic plan. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm pinch hitting for Stephen this evening. About 6 years ago, Get contracted with Sunrise Consulting, Mr. Robin Cody, to prepare a 5-year strategic IT plan. With the implementation of the AVL system, we pretty much have completed everything that was recommended in that plan. And so earlier this year, we asked him to come back and update the plan for the next 5 years. That's about how long a lot of the technology that we use, that's about the lifespan that it has. Mr. Cody is here this evening and is going to give a presentation on the work that he did and the recommendations that he had. He had recommendations in 8 specific areas, but I don't think he's going to delve too far down into the weeds unless you want him to this evening, and he's capable of doing that if you want to go there. Robin, I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. As proper speaker would be brilliant, be seated, be brief, that kind of thing. I'll do what I can to at least be brief and be seated on the process. I do want to give you an overview of the findings and the recommendations that we've come up with. But first, let me recognize Matt Scurzy, who has been tirelessly helpful for me from the time I came here in January through April, bringing up information, inventories, artifacts, a variety of things. I couldn't have done it without him, as well as Mr. Woods, and staff in general have been very open and very helpful through this process. Let me start with showing you what a long-range plan is, just so you understand the context of what these are. It's designed to investigate what technologies the district has. Are they the right technologies? Are they being used correctly and effectively? Is staff working for technology? Is technology working for staff? How does it really work in this process? The goal is to create a vision. of where we're going to be going over the next few years, as well as a funding roadmap that would allow you an opportunity of knowing what's it going to cost. The idea of this is to provide you with a tactical planning tool more than being opportunistic in how you buy technology. This graphic here shows the general life cycle. I heard the reference of a living document earlier when I think we were talking the long-range plan and such. Same thing here, the short-range plan. It's a living cycle. What we're just completed is the green side, where we've gone through, identified the purpose, understand what the needs are, what we're trying to accomplish, what are the objectives of the organization. And then what we have just finished, which Karen alluded to, was the last time we did this in 2009. It was all around the CAD-AVL system, which you didn't have at that point. Now you have smart buses that are doing quite well on the roads out there, as well as we had updated some of the servers and issues that were behind the back office side of life. And then we also kind of rededicated ourselves to using FleetNet, which is the core back office application. The goal of all of this is to create a vision of 3 to 5 years in general, with a 1 to 2 year funding strategy. There's some things that I was looking at as we were going through the process of understanding what the capabilities of the district are, what's the appetite or the capacity for change, because a lot of this stuff when we talk about process is around cultural change and around what people do and how they do it in order to improve. I believe the long-range technology plan should become part of the overall district's policies and plans going forward. But I'd also caution, the last little comment I have there is expect the plan to change. Technology changes. Technology is always on the move, always on the grow. So oftentimes you have to come back and revisit it on a regular basis. When I approached this study, I created a little step ladder that you can see there on the right side. My vision was to create this in a very systematic process. You've got to build from the foundation up. In my case, it was looking at the networks, looking at the telephone systems, the servers, and when I arrived in January, there was definitely some pain points and strain on how well those systems were staying up and stability and reliability with it. And my view is if you don't do the foundation right, don't worry about the upper steps. You're not going to be happy with the answers anyway. So if we look at these individually, when I was looking at the networks, we're just basically looking at all the core infrastructure, the routers, the switches, how the wires are in the walls, how does information move around through the data packs between your downtown center as well as your southwest center as well as Bakersfield College. We looked at the telephones and the variety of servers and switches looking for redundancies and what was missing. Because at the time there was some issues around the telephones and they were going up and going down, and that's not a way to run a business. Servers and storage, and you'll see a variety of things here. These are all kind of the technical side. But as I move into the upper steps, then we're starting to move more towards the process side. And there's two main themes that I want to speak to you about through this presentation, is the core infrastructure as well as how work gets done by individuals within the organization. We also were trying to ask stakeholders, the people who use the system, how well does IT meet your needs? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? Yes, sir.
Questions?
I just have a question real quick, that systems and server storage, is that room that we got a tour one time? There's this room back there that has just a jumble of
That would be the room.
Okay. So that was looked at as far as how that could better be used or fixed?
Upgraded.
Upgraded, yeah.
Clearly that is a recommendation. We'll get to those in a
Okay.
moment, but clearly that is something that need to be addressed.
Okay.
That's not how server rooms are supposed to look, either here or even downtown, and I'll address a little bit more of that.
Okay.
So this gives you the process, the analysis that I went through from the ground up. I wanted to step aside though and talk about high-performing companies, because this becomes part of the process side. To be a high-performing company, they've had to kind of marry three components: people, process, and technology. Clearly you have to have a foundation of technology that's strong. You have redundancies to your equipment, you have failovers so that things do go bump in the night. The end user shouldn't really see it or feel it. We also would have integrated systems where systems will talk and communicate amongst each other using relational databases, which you're familiar with. The other side of it is called process. How does work get done? And most high-performing companies have done some self-examination. How does work move? How do we get things approved? How do we get things signed? How do things routed? They've gone through that process of looking to see Sometimes it's done through leveraging new software, new technologies. Sometimes it's just putting an add-on on top of what you already have to create workflow, as we call it. So we don't have people wandering around the buildings waiting for people to sign things. What it does, process and technology, in my mind, enables the capabilities of the organization. Clearly, the last component of it is people. Have they been correctly trained, mentored? Are they being held accountable to do it with using technology? The last two captions I have is people and technology create the effectiveness, but it's really people and process that give you the ROI because we're doing things more efficiently, more effectively. You can only work so hard. At some point you need to start working smart. So we leverage technology in order to allow us to work smarter, not just simply harder. The next 3 slides are going to be the actual findings and recommendations. As Karen said, I'm not going to deep into all this stuff. You can read it. I don't have to do that part. But I am following kind of a step ladder approach that you saw earlier. And what I wanted to say there, even though we're going to see a lot of findings and recommendations, it makes it sound like we're not doing so well. That's not true. You're doing very well with what you have. But it is time to kind of move on and get some newer technologies and make ourselves working more efficiently. The main thing that I want to say here is, as you start looking at it, there was a lot of inabilities or lack of spares equipment, lack of or failovers, servers that were being basically single points of failure, which means if that server or that switch fails, whatever that function is failed with it. And we need to build in some redundancies and some processes for that. All this stuff has basically been brought on by growth. And again, we did this in 2009. We've had growth in a number of systems, growth in the complexity of these systems, growth in the number of components that we have to manage, growth in the number of cameras, even growth in the form of telephones. And now we've kind of reached the limit of what the telephones can do. For those of you who may not have heard this statistics, your IVR system, your interactive voice response system you're using for the buses out there, we're averaging over 10,000 phone calls a week. This as far exceeds what we'd ever anticipated we're going to have. We were using 4 lines originally, now we're up to 8 lines, telephone lines dedicated for that function. That may not be enough. So our phone systems are beginning to reach their capacity, so we're going to look for ways to increase the capacity by adding maybe more service coming in, as well as adding some more redundant switches that would protect anything from going down. The second slide that I wanted to show you, which is some more of the...
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
A question here on the data centers.
Mm-hmm.
You have multiple data centers in the operation?
We have actually 4 data centers. There's one here, which you referred to, which is what I used to call the meat locker. It's freezing in there. There's the one at Downtown Transit Center, and there's one at Southwest, and there's also one at Bakersfield College. So there's 4 of them.
Thank you.
The issue with the data centers, even though they're somewhat disarray, they need to be reorganized, relabeled, and repunched and stuff. The data centers at Downtown and also Southwest were really never designed to be data centers. They're literally, the one in Southwest is in a janitor's closet. That's not a place for this kind of equipment and this invaluable equipment. You're a 1/4 inch of water away from bringing the place down. If you get any moisture on this electronics, it quits. So we need to look at how to bring that stuff back over here, have what we call a centralized process versus what would be called a distributed process. And that's why we're going to recommend that we go to an AT&T switched Ethernet, which everything then can come back over here and be managed centrally by IT process here. Does that answer that question?
Thank you, yeah.
The second slide is really, and although it talks about systems and desktops, I really want to focus on the cameras, because the cameras, the facility cameras, are really what's causing the burst of bursting at the seams. When I was here in 2009, you had 56 cameras. Now you have 72. That in itself doesn't sound like that much of an increase, maybe 20%. However, what has changed is they've all gone from standard definition to mostly high definition. And the bandwidth requirement to go along with high definition cameras cannot be sustained by the way the infrastructure is now. And that's one reason we have the distributed process. Again, that's why we'll argue to bring in the AT&T switched Ethernet so we can bring it in here. So we're trying to rebuild what we've got out there, because the cameras are your safety and security for your customers. You have to have them, but we have to build an architecture and infrastructure to allow that video to get back over here. There's a number of ways that we can do it. When we spoke in committee meeting, we talked about Wi-Fi or other kinds of methods, but the amount of data being pushed by camera it far exceeds anything that a Wi-Fi can do, or even infrared, or any of those other types of options, even though we're looking at those. But clearly, to have that capacity, we need to go to a redundant and more robust. Your current environment, you're using Bright House on shared. It's like you getting internet on your home. You're shared with a lot of other people. The AT&T would be a dedicated private line for it with no one else on it, so you'd be in a much better position to manage it and control it with it. So that seems to be, in my mind, the way to go with this stuff. The third screen, which really what I want to focus on here, is really the e-office portion of it. This is where we spend an awful lot of time essentially doing work the way we've done it for years. Paper, 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 paper. Give you an example, requisitioning. If somebody wants to buy something, they have to fill out a form, they walk it around to get approvals, they end up at Karen's office for her to sign it, where most high-performing companies would have already created workflow to allow that electronically to move around from person to person. Other examples is, right now you still accept paper applications in your applicant process. In this day and age, in my opinion, you don't need to take on paper application because someone's staff here has to turn around and input it right back in the system. You have a kiosk in the lobby. There's computers in libraries. If a citizen of the city wants to fill out an application, there's more than one way to find a PC in order to do it without having staff have to turn around and do it manually back into it. So there's a number of things there that I think that we could use by putting workflow on top of, but I would think and would encourage the district to re-examine all of their processes. How does work move from any process that you have? Rethink it with the goal of how do we leverage technology to make it more effective, more efficient. That allows staff to be more effective and efficient and avoid having to increase staff down the road. All of this comes with a cost, not only a financial cost, but particularly in the process side, there'll be a cost in the form of thought and labor and working our way through the very business processes. Here's what the financial roadmap looks like. You'll see that it's front-loaded on year one, and that was because of the urgency when we started in January with the networks having some stability problems, and clearly the telephone systems were having some issues. So we tried to front-load this at this point. There's some things in year 2 and year 3. This is an opinion. It can move around a little bit depending on what staff's capabilities of appetite are for taking on these and what the budget will allow them to do. There are a variety of ways to do some of these things, but I wanted to lay out kind of a roadmap for you of what it might look like. Yes.
Year 1 begins January this year?
July 1st.
That's what I meant, July, yeah. And this number is in our budget.
There is $500,000 in the capital
500,
budget,
yeah.
and the balance is in the operating budget.
And I will say that about 80% of that number is buying commodities, buying switches, buying servers, buying storage. The biggest one on the storage because of video. Right now you can hold a roughly 7 to 9 days of video before it's overwritten because there's not enough capacity on the hard drives. The state of California has made the judgment that everybody is supposed to hold video for 1 year. But they immediately put caveats to that, which essentially says do the best you can, because no one can afford a year's worth of video. The amount of storage is just beyond comprehension. Talking to staff here, again this is facility video, not bus video, if we could get a 30-day piece of video rather than 7 or 9 days, we could probably get 80 to 90% of any law enforcement requests that we get for, do you have video for this particular incident on this given day? Because right now, oftentimes, the detectives don't even come over, according to Judy Donnell, for 2 or 3 weeks after the event before they ask. By that time, the video's been overwritten and it's no longer available. So the building of this architecture and some of these numbers are predicated on a 30-day retention, which is roughly 50 terabytes worth of storage. We've also tried to make this what we call scalable. So as you grow, we can grow it without having to replace it. And that's the typical way that we would do things. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Couple of questions on the application software here you're talking about. How much custom or tailored software do we have operating in-house now, or is it all purchased off-the-shelf software?
By and large, it's all purchased. You use FleetNet, which covers your finance, your supply chain, your maintenance. There's one piece that we've argued to add, which is the wayside maintenance or facilities maintenance, the module. It's about $4,000 to add that piece. And also a requisitions module, which would allow some of the workflow that we were talking about for purchasing things. Everything else is going to be your standard Microsoft Office. The more that we can standardize on FleetNet, which we're almost there, then we can get rid of some rogue Excel files and some rogue access databases and things. Because the idea is to get everything central to a relational database. It gets backed up every night into the cloud, so they're protected. And eventually, with the workflow process, I would encourage the district to eliminate a lot of the paper, as much paper as possible, scan it, file it electronically. That way it's backed up. You always have it for perseverance for as long as you need it, for perpetuity, I should say.
Did you want to make some comments from your
Yes, sir.
meeting?
Thank you very much, Robin, for coming. We appreciate you. Where's your office at?
I'm in Manteca,
Manteca.
up by Modesto, Stockton.
We drove down here. We appreciate you making the trip. We had a phone conversation with you last week at the committee meeting. I was the only committee member in that committee, and I asked some questions. I asked, well, can we do any of this in the cloud? Do we need to put it on our servers here? Is there can we buy servers from Amazon? Main issues with that, and this made sense to me. We are video heavy, and that seems to be the majority of what we're trying to save, at least on site here. And there's just no substitute, and it made sense to me. The upload speeds and the download speeds are just not quite there. The idea of, maybe I'll explain this more layman terms, but basically, we've got cameras in all these different locations, and we want to securely send them from where the video is being taken to our location here, and then fiber backbone that AT&T is going to provide will allow us to do that in a very quick manner. And that seemed logical and the right step. The 30 days is fine. I think the idea of being able to back up longer than that and expandable is great. Cameras are only going to get more complex and more higher resolution. So the committee, we asked those questions. I think it's a really important for us. Oh, the other really important question that I asked was, how much of this stuff can we take with us? Can survive past the life of our facility here? And I think an interesting point was made was that this technology has a life of its own, and that is probably similar to the life of our current facility. And whenever we build a new facility someday, the technology is going to be better, faster, and it's probably going to be close to the time that we need that replaced. He said certainly, and you can jump in if I get something wrong. Certainly, there could be some servers that we can move over to a new facility, but even then, have a 5-year life cycle. We bought ours now in 2009. It's 2016. We're talking about replacing them. If in the next 3 to 5 years this facility gets replaced, then a new facility with a new set of server racks would have to be built so that you could have day one migration. So anyways, that made sense to me. Obviously I think this is
coming out of committee with recommendation.
that's correct.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Brent.
Good to meet you.
Anything that we can do to step up the quality of our servers, I think is very important. I'm thinking 30 days is not going to be enough in some short term. So to have the ability to add on, I think is key. So I'm grateful for the report. Thank you very much, and thanks for sifting all through that for us.
Well, just a response to you, Jim. What I've used is hosted third-party service in that area, which is unlimited. You don't have to worry about buying new hardware and so forth, and that's It's very, anyway, it's a good alternative, particularly when we start growing in new facilities and so forth.
And I think the files, just to kind of, I think our files are not what's under discussion in that part of it. It's more of just the amount of data that we suck from our video cameras on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We can't create any file. We can't keep 10 gigabytes of files every day. We just can't do it. Word documents don't take that much. The video is extremely intensive, and that's what we're really trying to tackle.
Right. Just one other quick point. You mentioned Amazon, and that's an example of a hosted service. They're becoming more and more service-oriented organizations. Karen, did you have anything you wanted to add to the conversation? Thank you. Yeah.
I just would echo Robin and thank Matt for
Thank you,
the
Matt.
leadership that he's shown in helping us pull all of this together, and the lack of fear he's shown in being responsible for making sure it all gets implemented.
One other comment regarding Robin, I mentioned this evening, I understand you spent several years with BART in similar capacity, or at least bringing their systems, modernizing them and creating their operation. Thanks again. You're very welcome. All right, item 11, update on marketing and business development activities. Gina, back again. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I am here presenting an update. Whoa, what happened? On marketing and business development activities. In the last few months, we have had a number of activities. You may recall we produced a report to the community. This is the poster that has been posted in several locations. It went out to the public as a wraparound, as a wrap on the Bakersfield, Californian. That's the least expensive way to reach a lot of people and reach the people that we want to reach. We then had our Stuff the Bus project. That's in March, and we had a number of organizations that had boxes and were food donors. We also had a number who came to our resource fair, and we are currently working on to determine if we can go the other way and possibly provide food to the needy in our community, our customers. But that's still in work in progress. Between January and May, we attended 64 events, several focused on the homeless, several at local colleges and high schools. Albert attends most of the collaborative meetings in town. We had a table at 4 Condors games, and we also were out at the Tejon Outlet Mall promoting service to the mall. In April, I'm touching that too much. In April, we had Earth Month. We had 2 buses wrapped, as well as commercials and radio, television, etc. The Summer Youth Pass.
Beat the hot summer in the cool. When it's hot, get the hot deal. Cool transportation without the need for navigation. During the months of June through August, you can ride as much as you want, all month long, for only $20 a month with a Summer Youth Pass. We'll get you there and back. Get smart this summer and download the Get Bus app for real-time status of your Get Bus. Visit getbus.org or call 869-2GET for more information.
This is currently running at the Maya Theater. I don't know how many kids really watch TV. TV is expensive, but right now all of the movies out are kid-related, teen-related movies. So these are showing at the Maya, these commercials are showing at the Maya Theater in addition to radio spots as well. And Albert does a lot of outreach at the high schools. We try to hit almost all the high schools and talk to them about getting a Summer Youth Pass. Community relations has been a major priority for the board and for the staff. We do send newsletters to community leaders. We're getting ready to send one out shortly. It will include a video explaining why people sometimes see empty buses, because that's a question we get frequently. Why do I see an empty bus? And then the next one will be about complaints.
The person's asking the question's not on the bus, that's what it's empty.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
Your answer next time.
Yes. We also had 2 media events this spring, one regarding the success of the partnership with the city, the other one celebrating EMS. This is a graph of our customer service calls. As you know, we are about a year into having the real-time automated call system. As we hoped would happen, those calls have gone up. So you can see in the red our total calls. The top is almost 60,000. Real time is in yellow. You can see those are going up. Customer service, actually human responses, are going down. And this is the really important number for us, is the abandoned calls have really gone down. And that's really what we want. We do not want people to call, sit there ringing, and then hang up. So we're very happy about these numbers. This is what we thought was going to happen. Robin actually is happy about these numbers as well, because he was part of this project as well. So this is looking really good. These are the assessments that we do, and just as a reminder, the assessments are whenever we have an applicant for Get a Lift paratransit service, we do an assessment to make sure that they meet the criteria as the federal government has laid out. And so it's up and down. December it's not unusual to have a low number in December. People are doing a lot of other things. We're not really sure why it was low in May. We just didn't have a lot of people who wanted to apply for service that month.
Tell me again what this is, please.
This is before when someone applies for Get a Lift service, they go through an assessment, and that determines if they meet the criteria that is set out by the federal government, which essentially is they can't get to the fixed route. So for example, if someone, the fixed route is a half a mile from their home, but they can't walk a half a mile, then they would qualify for service. Conversely, if the bus stop is right in front of their house, but when they get to their doctor's office, that's a mile from a fixed route location, then they would qualify for paratransit service. Before we were doing the assessments, we were having they would take it to their physician, and the physician would fill it out. But it really wasn't a level playing field. You know, you got someone that's been going to the same doctor for 25 years, and they just sign off, and then we would have someone else who would go to their doctor, and their doctor would say, no, you don't qualify, and yet we would feel like they probably did. So this way, we have someone who's trained, who is doing the assessments to ensure that everyone is assessed equally, and who is, she keeps up on the ADA regulations, because they do change from time to time. So she understands what the regulations are and how our customers relate to those regulations, if that makes sense. Internal marketing, we kicked off Team Summer on May 26th at the health fair, and the focus this year for Team Summer will be customer service. This is an internal campaign that encourages top-of-mind awareness among employees about safety, customer service, and health and wellness. And that's my report. Are there any questions or comments?
One comment. The example you showed, that, by the way, that was an excellent video showing the young people in the summer pass. You mentioned that there's a huge number of movies being presented by Maya
Theater, right?
Theater.
Well, both the theaters right now they're running all teen and kid movies.
A lot of business going in their way. Are they a potential sponsor to provide to pay for summer passes possibly?
You know, I don't know that. We have not approached them yet. As we've discussed, our first priority with the sponsorships is to move on with veteran fairs first. And then we'll start looking at New Year's Eve, and then we'll start looking at Youth Pass. But yeah, I think there's a possibility.
Yeah. Just as a side note, as a member on the marketing committee, I've been following your dialogue with other marketing reps around the country, and this subject came up about sponsoring summer passes, not only, of course, for summer passes, but for other programs as you're working on.
Right, exactly. And I would point out, we are trying to do videos in-house because the cost is so much less, and we think they are more interesting than just the written word. That particular one, however, was done by Marcom. We did not do that. I wouldn't want you to think that we did quite that level of expertise. Okay, thank you.
Oh, no.
Jim?
I'm just,
No?
I'm just waiting.
Gina?
Come back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I like that video because it was a single message. Okay? I think there's probably a tremendous amount of things on this poster that we could turn into single messages and shout from the housetops. And you and your team, along with Karen, can identify the handful that's the best ones to start with, whatever you decide. But this is the document to refer. I'm looking for the executive summary, okay? The shout from the housetop. And by the way, check out the details on.
Right.
Go to the website, see this to get the details. But do you know we have increased the route, lowered the times on our head? Don't use headway because nobody knows what the hell that means, okay? But your waiting time is less. Whatever we can put out there.
Right.
That's a single message that gets across to the community in as simple terms as possible that we are hearing them, we're acting on it, and if you want the details to get down to the weeds, to quote one philosopher, is go to this website and have that on a page so they can just give the website / whatever.
Right. And it actually is, the details of this report actually are on the website.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can put this on a page that says get.com or .org / detail page or something like that, whatever you want to call this, then it's quick and easy. People can do that if they want to get down to get all the details out of it. We've got a single message that's being shouted that everybody can repeat. And then we have the details, and then if they go there, they're going to find out a whole lot of stuff. Before we start telling them how good we are, they're going to find out stuff.
Absolutely. I agree.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Yeah, I think that poster, it was in the insert of the California, right?
It was on, no, it wasn't an insert, it was
a
on the
wrap.
outside of the California. It was a
okay.
wraparound
A
on the
wrap.
outside, right.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that was
you couldn't
the-
look at the Californian
without
that
seeing-
day without seeing that first.
And I think
yes.
I got a lot of comments about people saying, oh, this, really? This, I never knew this, or it was so easy to comprehend, to read, and to just, like you said, things just jumped out of it. So, yeah, that video, it's actually people on the bus. It's not a bus going with no people on it, so.
Well, we're not going to, we will be redoing the Earth Month commercial next year because we've used this for 2 years. But sometimes it's not easy to get a whole bunch of people to get on the bus at a particular time. So that is noted, and we will make sure that we're aware of that.
And I think the direction now that we've moved into, we tried going to all these, to the companies and trying to move that way, to get people to ride. I think this direction that we moved in now, really stressing our customer service and really, like he said, shouting, from the rooftops, what we are doing good. I think that direction has worked out a lot better.
And actually, I'm bringing the marketing plan for next year to the next meeting. So you will have an opportunity to see that and comment, and we are looking at public image and how we do exactly that. over the next year.
Do you want,
I'd like to be.
go ahead.
How's our meetings? How many folks have been watching our meetings, or do we know from YouTube? Just curious.
It's up and down, and I would say off the top of my head, I would say the largest number we've had is 20, 30, it's maybe I think closer to 20. What we are starting to do is pull out pieces from the board meeting because we're not sure that people will go and listen to 2 hours. So for this meeting,
this is exciting.
I know. Nick from the city referenced the meeting, the board workshop, and I said to him, "Did you go watch it?" And he said, "No, not the whole thing." So, for example, from this meeting, we're going to pull out the SRTP segment, and we will put that on all of the social media sites and on the website. So what we're trying to do now is from every meeting, pull something out that we believe will be of interest to people. So now it's not go listen for 2 hours. Now it's here's a 5-minute of something important that happened at the meeting. So
I'd like
we're
to
trying to focus it.
see us take those and I know we have a flat screen television or downtown station. I'd like to, somebody wants to sit there and wait for the bus and watch the meeting, have that opportunity. I'd be kind of interesting to, well, what's our Get board doing or what's Get doing, and that's kind of like our own little. Is that something we don't want to watch there?
That screen is
Oh.
there to show the arrival time
okay.
of the next bus.
All right.
So you would be preempting that information.
Well, maybe
by
the
doing
folks that are taking the 91 down to IKEA would like to spend some time. I don't know. I'm being a little facetious, but
Yeah.
anyways.
Has there been any movement, Gina, with,
Moving on.
what is it called, Gov? The local KGov?
When I initially contacted them, and
Right.
they appeared to be quite interested, and I've contacted them a couple of times since and said, "Hey, do you still have an interest?" And they kind of are putting me off, so I don't know that there is. They have not responded, and I have made an effort, so I don't think that's something that they are as interested in as we had hoped.
Yeah.
Just one more comment, please. As we do things that the community has asked for, I really want to see us reinforce them. That needs to be whatever our marketing messages are for the coming year. That when we have messages from the community, writers, whoever, I want to reinforce that we are hearing you, we're acting on it, and here's an example. So that's it.
And that's absolutely, we are, I think our focus moving forward is to promote GET in the community, to improve our community image, and to find ways to improve service for our customers. I think that's really what we're looking at.
Tonight's interaction with ADAC seems like would be an interesting presentation to the public for them to see.
Here's a request.
There was a request, and there's some excellent interaction with the organization. Okay. Any other
I just
discussion?
have one thing, I was hoping to see Michael here.
Harmon?
Yeah, because one of his suggestions was that Decatur stop, and I haven't seen him since we've implemented that, so I'd like for him to know that, per public comment, and basically one of his comments, that stop got.
We sent him a letter.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We try to respond to almost all public comments, not unmet needs, but public comments. And so we've sent him several letters.
Good.
And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Excellent report. Moving on, high-speed rail update, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, on May 10th, the High Speed Rail Authority held their meeting here in Bakersfield, and one of the things they did was take action to select this Union Pacific right-of-way, the locally generated alignment, as the preliminary preferred alternative. And they're moving ahead to complete the EIS based on that. Last Thursday, we had our monthly conference call with the High Speed Rail Authority, KernCog, FTA, and FRA. And they're reporting that they're on track to release the EIS sometime the end of August, early September. And then there will be a 45-day public comment period after that. So we anticipate preparing comments once that's been released. In addition, they have asked us now for a hardship letter. They are interested in moving forward as quickly as the process will allow them to work out their issues with us, and have indicated that if we send a hardship letter to them indicating how their acquisition of this property and their timing of doing that has created a hardship for us, that would aid them in moving the process along. So we're in the process of developing that letter.
Does that go to the High Speed Rail Authority or to the federal level?
High Speed Rail Authority.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Okay, board committee reports, I think we've covered them all. So, are there any other comments?
I think we voted on the two that I had. So.
Okay. Thank you. Future agenda items and board comments. Cindy.
Thank you. I have a couple of, one along the same lines of the high-speed rail. I understood that there, in the facilities committee, there had been a list or a realtor that had come in and kind of gave a list of 20-acre parcels that they thought around that we might be interested in. Will the whole board be involved in looking at these, at this list, or generating another list, or will that just be up to the facilities committee?
First of all, I think we'll be generating a new list because that's been almost 2 years now since
Okay.
that occurred, and some of those properties are no longer available. We typically work through the committee, but if you want to have, and it would certainly come to the full board before any decision is made, but if it's your pleasure to have the full board review it without it going through the committee, we can do that as well. Typically, real estate matters are handled in closed session.
Okay. And the other.
Please handle it.
The other thing I had was along the lines of public image and community customer service. I know Elliot, I've seen him out at our downtown office, downtown transit center, hanging out once in a while, and I go down there and hang out too. And not as much as he does, but it seems like that downtown transit center is the along with our drivers, that is the face of what people look at and see. And if there's a way that staff can look at that facility and doll it up a little. I mean, I went in there the other day and you know, we've had complaints about the restrooms in there, and I went in there and there was, you know, the stalls were dirty and there was, you know, one roll of toilet paper for, you know, and it was just, I just think that, and when I talk to people, that's, they don't want to ride the bus if they have to go through that downtown facility because, you know, it's got a bad reputation there. And I don't know if it would take, you know, getting more security out there, getting more cameras. I mean, I don't know, but if we can look at it and try and you know, put a new fresh face on it, so that it is the facility that people look at and see that you know, that is get.
I'd like to comment on that. You know, this is something that's been near and dear to my heart. Like I said, I've been there multiple times, my lunch hour. You know, I see us making, you know, a look at our strategic investment for our IT, right? We spend a lot of time, we hired somebody to go and look at that. I'd like for us to maybe look into doing something similar for our downtown station, or you know, maybe for all of our stations, but particularly for our downtown, because I think that's, like you said, that's where everybody usually goes through. I'd like for us to maybe get this on a future agenda, you know, item. You know, look at that station, look at it in a, you know, not just its station, but on a maybe a 2-block radius. You know, of what are the things that are affecting that station. You know, I personally, you know, have talked to the police, chief of police in Bakersfield about that station. I personally witnessed a fight in that location. So, you know, I've personally been there. I personally walked through and, you know, watched people deal drugs on the corner. I personally watched, you know, kids smoking dope on the west side corner. I'm not sure what we can do about those things, but, you know, these are things that I have personally witnessed. And I noticed we changed our sign a few weeks ago. You know, I drive by there all the time, so I'm always probably rubbernecking, you know, looking instead of driving, which I should be doing. But, you know, the bathroom issue has been brought up multiple times. So, you know, if staff maybe could look at that and give us a report, you know, similar to what we've done. Hey, this is our, I didn't see it in our short-range transit plan, but it is part of our transit plan, you know, is how do we modernize that facility. When we were in San Antonio, you know, their facility there, you know, was inside. You know, San Antonio is a hot place. You know, it was an inside transit location. You know, maybe that's in our 5-year, 10-year transit plan, or maybe the transit plan is, you know, says that facility is not going to be useful in the next 5 years, and we need to move it, so we don't want to do anything. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But if we can have staff look into what the 5-year plan for that facility is, that would be great. I've often thought maybe buying our neighbors, both to the west and to, you know, some of that retail space there, and try to rehab the blight that is created, you know, because some of the businesses around there, that might be an option. So it would be good for us to look into.
I thought a recent Metropolitan Bakersfield Transit Center study addressed that. Does it not?
It does, but it had very minimal recommendations for improvements. It basically said that it meets the need.
Wasn't, I mean, it seems like to me that even before I became a board member, that when, you know, high-speed rail began to say, okay, this is the alignment they're looking at, that this would become a transit center. Was I wrong with that? Am I remembering that correctly?
This location?
Yes.
This here, where we're sitting?
Yeah. But it would be a joint transit.
There were certain members of the community who were promoting that the area where the circus is set up right now become that, but that was never the district's intention.
No, that's that.
So is our intention maybe, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but is our intention that remains our downtown transit center for the foreseeable future?
I think that's still to be seen. There is some discussion that it be relocated to the high-speed rail station. I think that's a critical question that the station area plan is going to have to answer. Do they want the whole transit center there, or do they just want a connection to the transit center?
Isn't
Like
that
a
where we
shuttle.
are?
Like the shuttle.
Isn't that where we are?
option.
Isn't this the transit center right here?
No, the transit center is on Chester and 21st, 22nd.
No, I think he's talking
Oh.
about the future
Yeah, the high-speed rail transit center.
it's gonna,
Is it gonna be where?
right here.
Here,
right.
But it wouldn't
Didn't I just
necessarily
say
be,
that?
but it wouldn't necessarily be Get's Transit Center. That's the difference. It's a high-speed rail transit center, but not a Get Transit Center. We would simply just connect our current transit center to high-speed rail.
That's what I was talking about.
And so the question is do we
Do
think
something.
about moving ourselves?
Hey, you know, this is a great conversation. Thanks for bringing this up. Because I've been thinking about
Cindy
this.
brought it up, I just
Thanks,
piggybacked
Mary.
on her.
You know, it seems like to me that the quickest way to solve this problem is to get a BPD car and an officer there. And have them be there.
We tried,
Wait.
I seriously
Wait.
called and asked.
I say, let's fund it. Let's look for a way that we fund the position. And if we have a couple of officers, one is is working the beat up Chester, down Chester, and now the next one changes. You see what I'm saying? And there's a police car there. I mean, in my neighborhood, I have about 3 policemen that live there, and they rotate bringing their car home. And I'm telling you that the traffic is a lot slower in my community. Whenever in my little neighborhood, when the police car is out there, it makes a difference. So if we've got problem folks that continuously destroy our property, if we can figure out a way to get the folks down the street involved in helping us, I say, what do we got to do? Let's have some conversations.
Right.
What would it take?
And I think, I don't know, maybe we go even one step further and some of our customers that are there have other needs. I don't know, maybe we ask Flood Ministries or somebody that
Yeah.
to come out there and go out and talk to these people and point them in the right direction of what their needs are.
if I may interrupt, I'd like to say we're probably getting a little
Yeah,
far
further.
into this discussion since
Since it
it's
should
not
be something on our
agendized.
agenda.
But I did hear someone ask for a report on how to modernize the downtown transit center, and all that you're discussing here can be included in a report that
Most
we would
excellent.
place on a future agenda.
Okay, good, thank you.
I'd like for all this to be a future agenda item.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Elliot, anything more?
I spoke
Okay,
to
Jim?
completion.
Yes, a couple of things. Do you guys get the Kern County Cooling Center locations?
Yes, and we provide free rides to them.
Outstanding. I don't know if you all have seen these or not, but this was just
No.
published, and it's really kind of far
I think
out.
that's great. I think the greatest Kern County Cooling Center is actually on wheels and it's painted blue and yellow. And you can ride it to and from where you'd like to go.
I think it's a great idea. The county has begun to improve the bus stops. The first one that I see that they have done, and maybe you have more accurate information than I have, is at the corner of East White Lane and South Union. Now, when the bus route made a right turn there, they put in the bus stop in the only place possible, and that was this dirt lot.
Beautiful.
And now it has curbs and gutters. So I just wanted you to know that the county is beginning to make some improvements, and I think that it would be good to at some point bring Mr. Pope back and ask him, not only just, okay, you're going to do something, but what kind of timing we're looking at. And have any of the rest of you driven Virginia
Oh, yeah.
from Mount Vernon to Oswald?
Yep. I've done that.
I've driven it.
I recommend it, but this time drive with the eyes of bus stops.
Mhm.
It is not good. It's really bad, and that is where they targeted. I don't know what the holdup is, but it'd be nice to see them
They're,
get on with it.
they're planning, if you recall in our facility meeting a few months ago, is their full launch of this program with our participation and funding is July next month. So we're perhaps that's a good time to
Yeah.
ask Mr. Pope to come in and give us an update. Can we do that? All right, thank you. Anything else, Jim?
Nope.
Okay, I have a couple of items. One is in the spirit of our marketing department and focusing on organizational image. I've responded to an invitation an APTA invitation for board participation at the national level. And I'm very excited about this. I don't know if I'll be selected, but I have made my application in there, and I would appreciate support, endorsement from the rest of the board. If you
What do you
agree.
need?
Well, they, at one point they'll be asking for
So they'll contact us.
contacts for endorsement and so forth. Karen, you know more about the process, but I know they will be asking for that. Okay. Is there any? All right, thank you. The other item came up in an APTA newsletter this past week, and I already passed it on to Karen, asking for an assessment on, or it has to do with the FTA's final rule on transportation planning, which is directed primarily to our MPOs, current COG, and those organizations. But the question in my mind is, how does that impact us in our planning? And in fact, how can we, if possible, leverage off of that, take advantage of this new rule and so forth? So Karen's going to give us a informal report. She's going to review the new legislation for us. Okay. That's all I have. Let's see, CEO report.
Mr. Chair, I have no report this evening.
Okay. Thank you. That was quick. And we have no more agenda items, so I guess we're adjourned.